Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's going to be doing a comparison between the Ram 2500 and the Ram 3500 to go over the major differences to help you figure out which heavy-duty Ram is the best option to go for. Before we get into this video though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry H. Miller Dodge Ram here in Sandy, Utah for giving me some time with both of these trucks. I'll include a link to their inventory in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Now with the 3500, there are three different powertrain options available. There is this one, which is the high output Cummins, goes through a 6-speed automatic known as the Ison. It produces 420 horsepower and then 1,075 pound-feet of torque. Now you can also get the standard Cummins with the 3500, which is paired to the 68 RFE. That is also a 6-speed automatic that produces 370 horsepower and then 850 pound-feet of torque. You can also get a 6.4 liter Hemi V8, which goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and then that one is good for 410 horsepower and then 429 pound-feet of torque. Now with the 2500, you have the same powertrain options available minus the high output. So you can get the standard Cummins, which this one has, so 370 horsepower, 850 pound-feet of torque, or you can get the 6.4 liter Hemi V8, same power outputs, 410 for the horsepower and then 429 pound-feet for the torque. Now before we move forward with the comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now I do want to mention that I picked out these two specific trucks because they pretty much have the exact same packaging. You guys can see these are both Laramies and they both have the sports package on them, and so that's why they look so similar, and they're also in the same color as well. So like, I feel like this is going to be as comparable as we can get with this video. Now the observant viewer will notice that these are the trailer mirrors from 22. 23 has new trailer mirrors, which I'll quickly show you in a second, but I do want to mention you can get the exact same mirrors on both of the trucks. You can get the trailer mirrors or you can get the smaller mirrors. Nobody ever orders the smaller mirrors on heavy duties unless they're a weirdo. And then here's a quick look at the new style of trailer mirrors. The big difference is these don't flip up, they extend out, and then you can also have like a bunch of lights on the mirrors as well. Now the next thing is going to be cab configurations. Now both of these are crew cabs, but you can also get these trucks in a mega cab configuration as well as a single cab configuration. There's no extended cab anymore with the heavy duties. And then when it comes to bed size, you can get either a 6.5 foot bed or an 8 foot bed with the trucks. If you get a mega cab, you can only get a 6.5 foot bed. You cannot get an 8 foot bed with a mega cab. And by the way, everything that I just said with the 2500 also applies to the 3500. Now another key difference is the fact that with the 3500 you can get a dual rear wheel configuration with the truck. You cannot get that with the 2500, and that obviously is going to really take things up to the next level when it comes to towing and hauling. Now when it comes to suspension, they actually have completely different suspension. Ram has a bunch of different suspension configurations for their different trucks based on how much they weigh because of the powertrain and with the truck itself. So look at the front springs and everything here with the 2500. And then look at the setup with the 3500. It might look similar on camera, but like it is different. Now what I would say is probably the biggest difference is going to be the rear suspension here. So you guys can see here with the 2500, if I actually kind of duck down below, you can see it a little bit better. We've got a multi-link setup here in the back with a solid rear axle. Whereas on the 3500, you guys can see we've got leaf springs here in the rear, so a little bit more of a traditional setup. And this leads to a huge difference in payload capacity. You guys can see here with the 2500, our payload is 2,225 pounds with this truck. And then this 3500 that's equipped pretty much the same has a payload capacity of 3,953 pounds. I mean, that is a huge difference. Actually, I lied, they're not equipped fully the same. This 3500 actually has a sunroof, which adds even more weight, which means that the payload difference is even bigger because that 2500 has no sunroof. So like, leaf springs for the win. And this is going to lead to massively different towing capacities with the trucks. So with a diesel 2500, which is the most common configuration, you'll see again, 68 RFE truck with a crew cab short bed just like we have here. It's going to be able to tow right around 16-ish thousand pounds, but that's not going to leave much room for payload because, well, you have a 10% transfer if you do a bumper pull, for example, which means that you're going to be using up almost all of that 2,000 pounds worth of payload with the truck. And so it does minimize the towing capacity and the overall hauling ability of the truck. Whereas with the 3500, it's not limited nearly as much. And so like if you get a single rear wheel truck with the Ison and a upgraded axle ratio, I mean, you can tow over 20,000 pounds. And then if you add a dually to it, Ram's stated max towing capacity with the 3500 is like 36,000 pounds, but that is a single cab base model dually. If you get a 4-door dually, 4-wheel drive, which is what most people will get, I think it's closer to like that 30-ish thousand pounds range, which is still absolutely massive. And that's like literally twice as much as what you'll see on most 2500s. And then the last difference I want to go over before we drive them and talk about how they drive differently from each other is going to be the pricing difference. There's about a almost $4,000 price difference between a 2500 and a 3500 Ram. Well, let's start off in the 2500 and then go over to the big bad boy 3500 to see how they drive differently from each other. I also mentioned that I parked the trucks so close to each other that when I opened the door, the mirrors were like millimeters from touching each other, but they did not touch each other. I am somehow a parking savant. That's I feel like I can say that at this point because like I have to just park and move around so many vehicles every single day for the channel. So I've learned a thing or two, but I still pale in comparison to skill, or in skill when it comes to a semi-truck driver. But anyways, fuel light, and that always happens. I'm used to it now. Setting off, good torque out of this powertrain. It'll be interesting to see the difference because again, that has the high output. So driving the high output back to back with the standard output Cummins will surely be an interesting thing. Now, when it comes to ride quality with the 2500, you know, for a heavy duty truck, it's pretty good. That multi-link helps out quite a bit. And that's the biggest reason why Ram went to multi-link in the back end, because obviously multi-link is not nearly as good for hauling as, you know, standard leaf springs, because again, it leads to a much lower payload number. But what you lose in payload, you gain in ride quality. And I think it makes sense for a 2500 because, you know, most people purchasing 2500s, you know, they're obviously purchasing it because they plan on towing with it, but they're going to be doing a lot more daily driving with it. And so having a, you know, setup where the suspension's more comfortable, I think that's going to be the route to go. Now, standard output's really torquey, super solid too, with just like the overall response. I think that Ram's done a great job with the setup. Brakes are super squishy. That's just like a heavy duty truck thing. Man, it's getting hot. I'm gonna have to completely change my outfits now because it's getting to that time of the year where I won't be able to wear a my Mr. Rogers sweater every single day is what I call it, because I wear the same clothes for every single review. I do it on purpose, by the way, guys, for the thumbnails so that I'm more recognizable. But anyways, let's get our full-blown acceleration here. Woo! Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the high output drives compared to this. But with a 2500 for a heavy-duty truck, ride quality is pretty dang solid. It still has solid axles, still heavy duty, so it is bumpier compared to a half-ton truck. But I mean, you know, as a heavy duty, like, this is daily drivable. I'd say, like, and pretty comfortably so. Like, they've done a good job with the overall setup on this truck. So let's pop into the 3500 and see how that compares and just sum things up. Okay, time to set off in the big bad boy Cummins. That's why we got the trailer mirrors flipped up, because you know what? Although I ain't hauling a trailer, we're hauling something today. Anyways, first setting off, you can actually tell the difference between the transmissions, even at low speeds. There's a little bit of a perceivable difference, but on a road, that'll be the big difference with them. Already noticing this is a little bit rougher riding. Already noticing that I feel like my masculinity has increased. No, I was kidding. Well, this is louder. This is actually a lot louder. That is interesting. So the high output is louder than the standard output. I actually didn't know that, because it's been so long since I've driven these back to back, so maybe I just forgot. But yeah, it's louder. That's so weird. What the heck? Why is it louder? Okay, it's way bumpier too. Obviously the leaf springs, you know, heavy. I can't talk. You guys know what I'm saying. The suspension is more heavy duty. Good gravy. So yeah, it leads to the ride quality being a little bit rougher. Torque's really good, of course. It feels kind of laggier though. Like, the standard output, obviously it doesn't have as much torque, but it felt like it was just, you know, right to the point. Whereas this, it seems like there's a little bit more of a lag. Yeah. This is something that I remembered, because the high output doesn't feel as like punchy, at least when you're not towing. Again, what I've heard is that when you're towing, that's where this really, you know, starts to feel pretty punchy. Gosh, yeah, it's so much bumpier. It's crazy. Like, the 2500 feels like a luxury truck compared to this in terms of ride quality. But, and then the half ton feels way more luxurious than both of them with ride quality. Anyways. Yeah, it doesn't really feel any faster. It feels about the same, maybe even slower. Again, the tuning with this is just different. It's definitely more set up for towing, you can tell. So, summing things up, here's the deal. If you're just gonna tow once in a while, 2500 is probably the route to go. It's more comfortable, it costs less money, and the powertrain is definitely better for daily driving. The overall truck's better for daily driving. But if you're planning on towing and putting stuff in the bed, 3500 is probably gonna be the route to go, because 2500 just does not have a lot of payload capacity, so you don't have a lot of wiggle room. Again, let's say you tow a 10,000, what, did I turn that on? Whoops. Anyways, let's say you tow a 10,000 pound trailer, okay, and let's just say 10% transfer, so you using 1,000 pounds of payload already with the trailer. That leaves 1,200 pounds of payload. So let's say that you then have 4 passengers that all weigh, let's be honest here, us Americans weigh quite a bit. So let's say you average, you know, 100 or 200 pounds, just to make math easy. 800 pounds of people, that leaves you with 400 pounds left that you could put on top of the trailer that you're towing. So like, hopefully that, like, you know, makes sense to you guys. Like, you use up the payload of the 2500 pretty quickly, so that's the big downside of that. Let me know which truck is the better truck for you with your situation, and hopefully this helps all of you out and decide between getting a 2500 Ram and a 3500 Ram.